Hey there everybody, coming back at you with another video here today on how to wire up subwoofers in a vehicle. So for starters, this is my 1997 Dodge Ram 2500 5.9 liter Magnum V8. We'll just go inside here. So the first step to wiring up subwoofers, I'll show you. I've got two kicker comps. They're just little 10 inches, but they hit very hard. And I'll show y'all how to get your subs to do that as well. So what you're going to want to do first is pop your hood, because we do need to get into the engine bay to wire this up. So open up my hood here. Got a little bit of corrosion on my battery. That'll happen up in my area. Swipe that off. Don't get it on your skin either. It burns. So what you're going to want to do, I'll show you right here. Here's the positive terminal for my sub, right, for my amp. And it's got this little fuse tap on here, just in case we get too much power, get a power surge for some reason. That will pop the fuse instead of surging my amp and destroying it. So I've got that ran into my positive battery terminal. And then I've also got my ground wire here, ran off the ground wire of my battery. Now, a lot of the times, you can just ground this to bare metal, but I usually just ground it out to the battery because it's a lot more simple, a lot easier. Some grounds get faulty over the years. But then what you're going to want to do, run it through the firewall. I already have a grommet here for my factory wiring harness. If you don't, just drill a hole, get a grommet, run the wires. It's that simple. But run it through the firewall so you can get access into your cab. We'll shut that there. And then I'll show you, they'll come in right under your dash panel. And the way I've got mine ran is just under my floor mats here. You can run them however you want. I just ran it there because it's concealed, a lot more simple. It's kind of a high traffic area, so if you're not comfortable with that, like I said, you can run it wherever you feel comfortable with. So, yeah, just run them through the firewall, get them into your cab at first. And then I'll go around to my amp wires here. On my passenger side. Now, what I did for my amp, usually you're supposed to mount your amp somewhere, but I put it behind my middle seat here. It's a pretty sturdy spot, doesn't really get much wiggle room. But take your positive wire that we ran from the battery, run it into your cab, and kind of behind your seats, under your seat, just wherever it's not going to be in the way, pretty much. So, as you can see here, I've got my positive wire, and then I've got my ground wire ran into my amp as well. For your positive wire, they sell these at, any store really, Walmart, any auto shop, anywhere that'll have them, So, your positive wire, you always want it to be pretty large to get enough power from your battery to your amp. And you can use regular speaker wire like this. I've done it before. It doesn't hurt anything. But just to be safe, I like to use these sub-rated wires that you can get at Walmart. And for the ground wire, you can use really anything. You'll hear a lot of mixed reviews about what to use for ground wire, but I've got my ground wire ran to the battery. You can run it to anything that's bare metal, so like your seat brackets or anything. And then you're probably wondering what this wire here in the middle is. It says REM on it. That is for your remote kick-on. And for people who've never done this before, you're probably wondering, well, what's a remote kick-on? So basically, the remote kick-on is that wire right there. It runs up into behind your radio, so when you flip that key on, and your radio turns on, it'll turn your amp on as well. It'll run power to it to get your subs booted up and going. So after you get all your power wires ran for your amp, you're probably wondering, oh well, how am I going to get my amp to send a signal to my subs for them to hit right? And that is where RCA cables come into play. So our RCA cables will be these guys back in here. These guys right here. There we go, since it focused. Alright, so that'll be those guys right there. And to get a better perspective, I'll go on over to the driver's side again. I know a lot of moving around. But to get a better perspective on that, we'll go to the driver's side where we can see the amp. Now I've got mine kind of just bundled back here because I got really long ones and I didn't really need that long of cables, but different vehicles vary. Some vehicles you will need that long of cables. A lot of them you won't. But I think I've got, I don't know, like 15 feet of cables here, maybe 25 feet. Yeah, I didn't need that much. It's just a single cab truck. I probably only needed like 6-foot cables, but your RCA cables will go into the red and white hookups of your amp. Now, they're not really set for, hot or ground. So whichever one you run, that's what you need to run it into your radio as. So I believe the clear one I have ran to red for power. So you'd have to run it into the red port in the back of your radio, and so on and so forth. So since white's red, it goes to red. Black is white, so it'd go to white. And that's how you get your subs getting the signal on what notes to hit on and what notes not to hit on. Now you can reverse them. You can plug your white into red and then run it to the white on your amp. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In some cases I've had it make my subs hit a lot harder, and in some cases I've had them not really hit worth a crap. So that would be how you get signals to your amp. Now I've got 2 sets of them, being as my radio is applicable to 2 sets of RCAs. Some radios aren't, and some radios are. I have a Pioneer Bluetooth MVH series radio, and Pioneer's a really good brand. I'll back them all the way. I've never had trouble with them at all. And they're always a really nice radio to use for aftermarket. But yeah, I've got my RCAs ran from the radio to my amp under the back of the seat here and under the floor mat. And as you can see, there's all my wiring ran to the amp back there. If my camera would focus. There we go. So yeah, there's all the wiring ran to the amp, and then you're probably thinking, okay, well, we've got all that taken care of now. How am I getting power and ground to my subs to make them hit? So the signal for them to hit comes to the amp, and it doesn't really go to the subs. The way that you get your subs to hit, you'll have a power and a ground here on your sub that you run to your amp. And you take your wires. I usually, with speaker wire, there's a wire that's blue with a white stripe, and I usually like to use that for my power wires. And then I use the solid blue for ground. So that's how I have my subs hooked up. And then on these kickers, it's just a push down, and then you shove the wire in and let it go. See, I kind of need to restrip this and put it back in. And that'll happen over time with your sub terminals gripping the wires. It's just a normal thing. But maybe I can show y'all here what exactly to do for that. Get that to focus. There we go. So on these kickers, you just push this down and it opens up this little hole right here for your wire to go into. And that would be how you, you know, get your subs to hit. So we're gonna do that quick here. Sorry if the quality's bad. I only got one hand to hold my phone with. But we'll push that in, get it into that hole, and there we go. Now we got that in the hole, and that's good, and my subs are working. So then I'll show you where to wire it into your amp at for it to work even better. Well, for it to work, period. But push that seat forward once again. So on your amp, let me reach back here and grab it. So on your amp, you'll have your ports for your speakers. There'll be, I have a 4-channel amp, so there'll be, 2 power, 2 ground on each channel. And like I said, it corresponds with your subs as well, with that red and that black, the power and the ground. One will be positive, one will be negative on your amp. So run whichever wire you choose to use to its corresponding terminal on your amp, and that'll work to get your subs hitting. I think, if I'm not mistaken, on my amp I have them bridged. So I ran, like, say, the power for this sub into the power on my amp on one channel, and then I ran the ground onto the opposite channel in the same way with this other sub. So they're grounded through each other and they're powered by their own power, so they're bridged onto the same power output, so they hit at the same optimal level. And that's pretty much it to wiring up subs. I know it's probably going to be a lot more complicated than it would seem, in this video, but ain't nothing to it but to do it, guys. And yeah, pretty much it's very simple. If you learn, you'll know how to do it forever. I learned how to do it once, I think, on an S10. I wired up the same thing, 2 10-inch subs. It's really easy. It's the same for 12s, 15s, anything. I'll make another video talking about what amp to get for what kind of subs, because every amp's different, every sub is different, and you'll need a certain power, a certain amount of power to run a certain type of subs. But that'll be in another video that I'll upload for you guys. But for now, that's about it. That's how to wire up subs. It's easy as that. So comment any questions that you have. I'll try to reply to you. And thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy.